Several countries and international organisations have joined the efforts to assist Lebanon following the devastating blasts in Beirut. Protests continue in Chile to reject the racism and violence against the Mapuche community. The number of COVID-19 cases in Africa has now surpassed 1 million, with more than half registered in South Africa. From the headquarters of Telesur English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm Katrina Goss. UN and humanitarian volunteers assisted the Lebanese government's rescue efforts on Thursday following the deadly explosion that killed over 100 people. The UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs led a group of experts from the International Search and Rescue Advisory Group and UN Disaster Assessment and Coordination to support first responders in Beirut. Additional emergency teams arrived to help mount a coordinated humanitarian response. The UN resident coordinator announced Thursday the release of $9 million from the Lebanese Humanitarian Fund, while additional funding was expected from the UN Central Emergency Response Fund to address the immediate needs. Part of the money will go to support hospitals in Beirut, boosting intensive care unit facilities with trauma kits, ventilators, medical supplies and medicine. And technical experts from the United Nations Interim Force in Lebanon conducted a visit to assess damages at the destroyed port complex in Beirut on Thursday. One of its maritime task force ships was struck during the blast. The UN mission said it would work together with the Lebanese civil defence to evaluate the amount of damage caused by Tuesday's explosion. Lebanese officials have estimated the losses at 10 to 15 billion US dollars. The Algerian Red Crescent Society has prepared aid packages for Lebanon following the deadly explosion that rocked its capital. Over 200 tons of mainly food products are to be sent to the disaster-stricken city of Beirut. According to statements, the organisation intends to send further humanitarian aid shipments every day. Several countries and international organisations have joined the efforts to assist Lebanon, sending food and medical aid, as well as support personnel.
The President of the Republic has decided to send aid to the Lebanese people. 200 tons of food products are being sent. The Ministry of Trade collected the aid and the Algerian Red Crescent is supervising the operation. A shipment will be sent every day through the military airport of Bufari until other operations can be set up.
And Morocco has also sent humanitarian aid to Lebanon aboard 8 aircraft, carrying over 250 tons of basic foodstuffs and 21 tons of medicines and medical supplies and equipment. Coordination efforts are also ongoing to install a field hospital to treat those injured in the blasts in Beirut. Hundreds of Palestinians in the city of Rafah in the south of the Gaza Strip held a candlelit vigil on Wednesday to express their condolences and support for the Lebanese people.
Here, in solidarity with our dear Lebanese people, and we wish them peace, we send all our prayers to the Lebanese people from the besieged people of Gaza.
We are here in solidarity with our dear Lebanese people and we wish them peace. We send all our prayers to the Lebanese from the besieged people of Gaza.
Residents of Yemen's southwestern city of Taiz gathered to show their solidarity with Lebanon after the massive explosions that destroyed large parts of central Beirut.
Today the people of Taiz, from all affiliations, with all their humanity and Arabism, raise the Lebanese and Yemeni flags and message to say we love you, and that Beirut will not die. We stand in solidarity with Beirut, with Lebanon, with the people of Lebanon. Flags were raised in Cairo Castle, in solidarity with the Lebanese people.
Lebanese protesters clashed with police late on Thursday as they attempted to approach government buildings in central Beirut. The police responded with tear gas to disperse the crowd. Early on Thursday, Beirut residents voiced their anger at the government during a visit by French President Emmanuel Macron. Many Lebanese blame the country's political elites for the disaster that occurred on Tuesday, accusing them of corruption and mismanagement. The country has been on the brink of economic collapse for months, and the explosion has made the situation much worse. Iraqi officials reported a massive fire in more than 20 warehouses of wholesale markets in the central city of Najaf this Wednesday. Fire brigades from other provinces of the country were sent to the scene to control the flames. Local sources believe the fire was caused by an electrical malfunction. Despite the serious material and economic damages, no deaths have been reported. The warehouses are one of the main points of sale in the city. I will be right back after this short break, so don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. In Chile, Mapuche political prisoners have refused to take part in the government's so-called intercultural talks. The 8 Mapuche political prisoners on hunger strike at the Angol prison decided on Wednesday that they would no longer drink water due to the lack of progress in talks with the government of President Sebastián Piñera. Leader of the prisoners, Rodrigo Curipan, stated that they would not take part in the intercultural talks organised by the Ministry of Justice for Friday, which will bring together Mapuche leaders, academics and other professionals. Rodrigo added that for them these meetings do not respond to the critical situation of the 27 Mapuche prisoners held in different prisons in the Araucania and Biobío regions, and have little to do with a critical view and openness on the implementation of the International Labour Organization's Convention No. 169 on indigenous and tribal peoples. And protesters once again took to the streets in Chile demanding the release of Mapuche political prisoners and an end to racism and discrimination. Likewise, they've called on the entire Chilean population to join the mobilizations.
We demand freedom for our brothers who are carrying out a hunger strike, because our brother in Angol prison also stopped drinking liquids, together with the other brothers in Temuco prison, to demand their freedom and Convention 169, and also to say that we do not want any more raids of Mapuche communities. Today we want to make a call for action, to go out to the streets with your Mapuche flag, because there were lots of people that went out with their Mapuche flag during the social unrest. That is why we have made this call, so that we protest, so that this does not go unpunished. No more discrimination against the Mapuche people. We demand freedom for all Mapuche political prisoners.
The Chilean Senate held a special session to address the conflict in the Wall-Mapu region and the hunger strike being conducted by Mapuche political prisoners. The debate was marked by the apologies of several Congress members for not being able to provide solutions. There was a broad call to condemn violence in the Araucania region, known as Wall-Mapu to Mapuches, and to face up to the challenges of a necessary dialogue. Senator Juan Ignacio Latorre, president of the Human Rights Committees of the Upper House, highlighted his concern about the ongoing hunger strike, while assuring that an attempt will be made to establish a high-level platform for talks.
I think that the hunger strike is an urgent issue to be addressed. The Human Rights Commission of the Senate asked for a direct conversation with the Minister of Justice or some high-level minister, a special platform to reach agreements, to negotiate, to talk.
Argentina's Vice President, Cristina Fernández de Kirchner, has filed a lawsuit against Google for defamation. The Vice President's lawyers filed a request before the Civil and Commercial Federal Court for technological expertise against Google that will form evidence for a lawsuit. The complaint stems from May 17th, when a Google search into her name returned a result with Thief of the Argentine Nation in the place where the Vice President's political position should have been. In view of this scenario, the lawsuit claims that the internet giant published false and offensive information, tarnishing the name, image and honour of the claimant. The indefinite general strike called by the Bolivian Workers' Centre, the country's chief trade union federation, continues following the postponement of the general elections to October 18th. In the southern area of the administrative capital, La Paz, 2 new roadblocks were added to the more than 55 reported by the authorities in response to the failure of the meeting between the Bolivian Workers' Centre and the Electoral Tribunal to reach an agreement. The electoral body announced that the date of October 18th was irreversible. The Trade Union Federation insists that an intermediate date must be set for the elections between the originally agreed date of September 6th and October 18th. The workers' movement has also stressed that the postponement of the elections for the 4th time responds to the interests of right-wing sectors who staged a coup last year and are seeking to cling on to power in the de facto regime. Progressive foreign policy groups in the United States recently created the Alliance for Cuba Engagement and Respect. The Progressive Alliance, also known as ACERE, seeks to improve relations between the United States and Cuba following the setback under the Trump administration and the failure of bills promoted in the House of Representatives to lift the coercive economic measures against the Caribbean nation. The alliance brings together NGOs such as Code Pink and different Christian organizations who are attempting to influence the position of Democratic Congress members, urging the easing of measures against Cuba for humanitarian reasons. Cuban health authorities offered an update on COVID-19 cases this Thursday.
As a result of the analysis of these samples, where 49 people were tested positive yesterday, very high COVID-19 figures in our country. In this way, we have a cumulative sample size of 285,471 and 2,775 people, which represents 0.97% of the total number of the testing for COVID-19.
And the Cuban Director of Epidemiology also reported new COVID-19 recoveries.
Yesterday, there were 13 discharges in our country, a number consistent with the cases diagnosed a few days ago. Nevertheless, the number is at a disadvantage compared with the number of cases confirmed yesterday. This way, 87.8% of the positive cases so far diagnosed have recovered. We are talking about 2,409 people.
On Thursday, the governor of the U.S. state of Ohio, Mike DeWine, tested positive for COVID-19 just ahead of a planned meeting with President Donald Trump. The governor's office said he took the test at an airport in Cleveland as part of standard protocol in preparation for President Trump's visit to Ohio. DeWine, an early advocate of wearing masks, said his diagnosis did not lessen the importance of wearing a mask and practicing social distancing. The Republican governor's early and aggressive response to the coronavirus won him praise from health experts and rebukes from within his party. Meanwhile, the number of coronavirus cases continues to rise in the United States, which has reported over 5 million cases and more than 162,000 fatalities.
The lesson should come from this is that we're all human. This virus is everywhere. This virus is very tough. And yes, you can contract it even when you're being very, very careful and even when you're wearing a mask. But your odds are just dramatically better.
And we have more stories coming up after this final break, so stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. The number of COVID-19 cases in Africa has now risen to over 1 million, with more than half of those registered in South Africa. The continent's worst-hit nation has now confirmed over 538,000 cases, including over 8,000 new cases reported on Thursday. Meanwhile, South Africa's death toll stands at over 9,600. Egypt comes second in the African continent, having reported just over 95,000 cases, followed by Nigeria. And 354 new coronavirus cases were reported in Nigeria on Thursday, bringing the total to over 45,000. According to the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, the latest figure of daily cases is one of the lowest in 2 weeks. The update came just hours after the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 approved the gradual resumption of international flights and train services across the country. The NCDC also reported that 3 deaths were recorded from the virus on Thursday, the lowest figure in the past 3 days, bringing the death toll to 930. Kenya recorded over 500 new cases of COVID-19 on Thursday, taking the country's total to more than 24,000. Kenya is the 7th most affected nation by the pandemic in the African continent. In the last 24 hours, the country reported 8 COVID-19 fatalities, bringing the death toll to 399. On a positive note, 514 patients recovered and were given the all-clear over the past day, making for a total of over 10,000 recoveries. Mauritanian President Mohamed Ould Ghazouani has appointed a new Prime Minister just hours after the previous government resigned. Prime Minister Ismail Ould Cheikh Sidiya announced his resignation and that of the entire government this Thursday amid an investigation into alleged high-level corruption. President Ghazouani appointed veteran public administrator Mohamed Ould Bilal as Prime Minister. The political system in Mauritania has been rocked this year by a parliamentary investigation into alleged corruption in the government of former President Mohamed Ould Abdelaziz, who stepped down last year after a decade in power.
I tendered the government's resignation to the president. It was an opportunity to thank him for the trust he had placed in me during that period. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank the government team for the efforts made throughout this period in the service of Mauritania and its people.
Congolese authorities announced the withdrawal of Zambian troops from disputed border territories this Thursday.
The report of the SADC mission carried out from the 22nd to the 29th of July 2020 led to Zambia's recognition that the border territories of Kalumbamba and Kibanga that it had occupied belong to the Democratic Republic of the Congo. As of August 4, 2020, our competent services and all Congolese and foreign officials have noted the effective withdrawal of Zambian troops. The Joint Committee also ordered the installation of the provisional border pillars, pending the construction of the final border pillars and the use of durable materials. This, of course, has not put an end to all aspects of this dispute, which will continue to be the subject of negotiations between the two parties.
Spain's health ministry has denied that the country is facing a second wave of COVID-19 infections, despite a spike in cases in recent days.
Has a technical component. I would not call it a second wave until we have uncontrolled community transmission that really represents an increase in transmission, and not just that. We detect a lot. It is true that calling this a second wave has a technical component. I would not call it a second wave until we have uncontrolled community transmission that really represents an increase in transmission, and not just that. We detect a lot more of it. But it is true that there is also a part of the concept that is very semantic. It's a great concept that's quite fuzzy. The same situation in some cases could be called a second wave. In others, it's not. We have more detection, and that means in the data we detect more cases. This does not mean, please do not misunderstand, that we do not continue to have transmission. We continue to have, and therefore this data is real, but it is difficult to compare it with previous months.
A campaign has been launched in Spain to demand that the government remove the royal title of King Emeritus from former Spanish King Juan Carlos following recent corruption scandals. The honorary and lifetime title was awarded to Juan Carlos after his abdication in 2014 by the government of Mariano Rajoy. Spanish newspaper Público, responsible for launching the campaign, argued that the honour can be withdrawn immediately by the current government. Over 35,000 people have already signed the proposal, which also seeks to rename avenues, parks and public institutions which are named after the king, including the King Juan Carlos University in Madrid. Meanwhile, public discontent surrounding the Spanish crown has grown in recent days following corruption revelations and the fleeing of Juan Carlos to the Dominican Republic. The United Kingdom reimposed quarantine for travellers from Andorra, Belgium and the Bahamas on Thursday following a spike in coronavirus cases in those countries. Secretary of State for Transport Grant Shapps announced the measure on his Twitter account, noting that passengers arriving in the UK after 4 a.m. on Saturday from these countries would need to self-isolate for 14 days in order to try and keep infection rates down. And we've come to the end of this news brief, but as this Thursday marks the 58th anniversary of the independence of Jamaica, we finish with the classic song, Redemption Song, by Bob Marley. Remember, you can get all these stories on our website and social media for Telesur English. I'm Katrina Goss. Thank you for watching and enjoy the music.
yesterday took I from the bottomless pit, but my hand was made strong by the hand of the Almighty. We forward in this generation, triumph